It's Craig Baird, and I lived and taught in Japan for a total of 4 years. The first couple of years I spent in a private language school, and I enjoyed it so much that I went back for another couple of years in a public school. Before I went over in the language school, I did a lot of research into what was involved, and I had a fantastic time. The reason I chose Japan was where I'm from in British Columbia is I was born near a fishing village, and in that fishing village is where the first Japanese people to come to Canada came there. So I kind of grew up with Japanese culture, and I had a lot of friends, and since I was studying English at university, I decided it was a perfect fit to go to Japan. No, I pretty much just knew hello and thank you. And that's one thing I really wish I prepared for before, was to study a little bit more of the basic language. So I had a lot of catching up to do. No, I tutored a little bit and in an elementary school, and then I did a TESOL certificate before I went. That had a practicum, but nothing really, no formal training necessarily. Yeah, so I taught in a private school for a couple of years. I taught children as well as adults for a couple of years, and then I actually left Japan, and I missed it, and I wanted to go back and experience it again through the public school system. So I went back through a government sponsored program to teach for a couple of years. Total, probably about 4.5 years altogether. So basically, first of all, you'll apply for a company, and once you kind of agree and they accept you, then what you have to do is you have to go to the Japanese consulate and get something called a certificate of eligibility. And all that is required is a bachelor's degree of any discipline, as well as a valid passport. And then what happens is you send that certificate to the company in Japan, and they will send it to Japanese immigration. They pay the sponsorship fee. They return it to you in Canada. You take it to the Japanese consulate and get it validated. Yeah, all you need at the moment is just a bachelor's degree and a valid passport. It's not mandatory, but I do recommend it. It definitely gives you a solid base of teaching, but it's not necessary at the moment. For the basic sponsorship, once they give you the sponsorship, the standard fee is 250,000 Japanese yen, which roughly translates, depending on the economy fluctuates, but roughly $2,500 to $3,000. For Japan, generally not. What a lot of the companies will do is they'll pay for your flight home, but not for your flight to come. And they usually provide semi-furnished apartments, usually with subsidized rent. Generally, when I was teaching in the private language schools, I would generally teach anywhere from the early afternoons to the early evenings, so maybe about 3 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So the mornings I'd use to go to the gym, do shopping, study a bit of Japanese. And when I was teaching in a public school, it had more regular hours, so I was teaching pretty much 9 to 3, and I enjoyed that schedule much more because again, in the evenings I used it to study more Japanese, like I said, go to the gym, studied a bit of judo, met friends. So yeah, it was a nice lifestyle. Absolutely, yeah. Japan is renowned for being a safe country. And you could be at what they would consider the shadiest area of Japan at 3 in the morning, and I felt completely safe. Yeah. I tried to, since I was in Japan, I did my best to travel and get out around the country. Luckily, Japan is easily accessible. It is a small country, and the transportation is fantastic. So I'd go out to the different prefectures if I could. There's always things happening regarding festivals or exhibitions, things like that. It's definitely possible. I wish I had saved more. I enjoyed my time there. But it's definitely if you budget properly, I think it's possible to save anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month. There's a couple of ways you can go. You can do it through the bank system there, but they do charge quite a bit of money, close to $100 to send it home. So there are a couple of companies that you can go through. The American companies, and they're much cheaper, maybe $20 to $30 that you can wire money home. You do have to pay taxes. I think right now it's about 5% is what you have to pay. So it's a lot cheaper than what we used to. Absolutely, yeah. I had a fantastic lifestyle. Yeah, like the teaching was really enjoyable. The compensation is more than enough, and when you're actually living in Japan, it's not as expensive as people make it out to be. So it was definitely comfortable. The weather was great. The Japanese people, they're proud to say that Japan has 4 seasons, and yeah, the weather for me it's quite hot in the summer, a little bit more humid than I'm used to, and the winters up north can be quite cold. But the fall time and springtime it's fantastic. It's nice and cool. It's comfortable. Yeah, so it's definitely 4 distinct seasons. Again, the food, as most people know, Japan, it was probably the best food I've ever had. They take a lot of pride in their food and their preparation, and it's a big part of the lifestyle there. So, having Japanese food back home here now, it doesn't quite compare to the real stuff in Japan. Fantastic. Like I said, the first time I spent about 2.5 years there, and then I left, and I definitely missed it. And again, I wanted to sort of experience it through the public school system. So actually, I came back to Canada and went through the system, which took about 6 months, just so that I could go back to Japan, and it was definitely worth the time. Originally, I did go through a recruiter. I just wanted to. It was one of the big language schools that I originally went through, and I figured first time in Japan, I wanted to kind of do it in the proper routes, and yeah, I had a good experience with that. I do find in Japan, it is possible once you get there to find work, but I do think going through recruiter originally is a much better option.